So the Souls-like genre is a very fickle beast. We get new entries so often that it gets increasingly difficult to keep track of all of them. However, every now and then we get a few that turn into instant classics. And if the past year proved anything, is that Chinese developers are starting to make some big moves in this space as well. Last year, for example, we got Wuchang, which started breaking records in player count in no time. There were a few other projects too, including some that are still a year or two away, but this month, ladies and gents, on July 24th, we get Wuchang Fallen Feathers. And to be honest, it kinda piqued my interest. The combat looks really interesting. There's a really cool inner demon mechanic that punishes you if you're, well, pretty much bad at the game. And the bosses look like something that will make me rage quit on at least a few occasions. The game also launches at what I would say is quite a reasonable $50 price point, given the fact that it's supposed to be 40 to 60 hours long. So before you actually get to spend anything on it, here's everything you should know before playing Wuchang Fallen Feathers. Now, the game self-describes as a Souls-like RPG set in the land of Shu during the late Ming Dynasty. Here you get to play as Wuchang, a female pirate who awakens to amnesia only to be affected by a mysterious illness. And at the core of the story is this very mysterious illness called feathering that our protagonist also suffers from, which causes weird mutations to form, but is also at the core of our unique powers. Hence, all the malformed monstrosities that we now have to fight to uncover the origin of this dreaded curse. The world itself is also described as being rich and interconnected, so not fully open world like Elden Ring, but more like, think of classical Dark Souls. However, some of these map areas look quite large, and the developers mentioned exploration plays a huge role in the gameplay, featuring landscapes inspired by Ming Dynasty China, from forgotten temples, cursed villages, all the way to shadowed ruins. There's even a hub area similar to the Round Table Hold, but expect other common Souls tropes such as shrines acting very similarly to the bonfires. And what I find interesting is that the story premise, the feathering, also plays as one of Wuchang's biggest combat mechanics. Essentially, when performing certain actions, including but not limited to perfect dodges, you generate what's called Skyborn Might. And this empowers everything you'll be doing from a combat standpoint, from chaining combos seamlessly to spellcasting all the way to using special weapon techniques. The game is designed to make you feel unstoppable, but only if you earned it. We can see this from some of the boss trailers they put out a while ago, that Skyborn Might is indicated by the feathers shown next to the character's health UI. In this instance, it was getting generated both from perfect dodges, but also from some of the other actions when switching in between the weapons. And I mean, the quick transition from weapon techniques to spellcasting, even to weapon swapping here, looks really fun, at least visually. Also, on a quick side note, you can still use the weapon techniques even with no Skyborn Might. According to PC Gamer, it's just that they won't be quite as powerful. That's not the only use, however. Others also include a quick draw mechanic where you can spend some of the Skyborn Might to quickly swap to your offhand weapon and instantaneously unleash its special move. So there's also a weapon swap system here that facilitates synergies and makes combat flow a little bit better. So it definitely seems that the game is leaning heavily into making perfect dodging a core mechanic, where precision and timing are a key factor to your success. And that sparked some questions in the community if that's the only damage avoidance mechanic that we get. Well, the good news is that no, we don't just get dodges, parries are also a thing, as seen from some of the gameplay videos. Some of the weapons also offer the possibility to even perfect parry and then immediately follow up with a devastating counterattack against the target, which usually also sends them flying on their backs, so it seems that it also plays with the poise mechanic. Besides that, some of the swifter weapons, such as the dual blades, seem to incorporate at least some kind of blocks straight into their own attack chains. So looking at the dual blades over here, we see a similar effect popping up as the weapons clash with that of the enemies. Given how punishing it can be to face tank even small enemies in such types of games, it's nice to see the implications of mechanics typically found only in action combat games added into the mix here as well. Now, another interesting fact is that there's going to be a lot of spell casting in the mix too. We actually get a lot of these spells from defeating and absorbing those powers from the very bosses we encounter. In fact, boss fights here will push you to the brink, according to the developer. Each boss is a fearsome spectacle of myth and menace with unique movesets, high pressure mechanics, and visual design that stays with you long after the battle ends. And to be honest, I would expect no less from a game that self-portrays itself as a Souls-like. Always been a fan of absorbing boss powers, to be honest. It doesn't just entice exploration, but also gives you a feeling of achievement that you can now use some of the abilities that the boss was using during the fight against it. Which brings us to another mechanic I wanted to talk about that I find very interesting because it's a very unique implementation of a system that's been with the genre for a very long time, and this is the inner demon system. So unlike most Souls games where when you die you just go back and collect your runes, Wuchang expands on this with a couple of changes. One is that as you keep dying, you're also going to see your attack power increasing. However, at the same time, you're also going to become more vulnerable, which translates to taking more damage. So it's kind of like a way the game self-improves the difficulty level so that you can take down the boss a bit easier as you continuously die and have to repeat, even if it is at the cost of getting more damage yourself. But the other change is even more interesting because if you die a few too many times, eventually you will have a demon clone of you spawning and starting to hunt you down. And that image is an exact copy of your character, an unforgiving mirror of your own strength that you now have to defeat. Which is such an interesting concept. Not only do you have to fight with the fact that the boss just defeated you for the 20th time, now when you go back to take up your runes, you will have a clone of yourself also trying to take you down, because failing to defeat it results in losing all the points you have gained, of course the ones that weren't secured by leveling up your character. So it's really a nice creative spin they added on a mechanic that we know for so long, while also cranking up that difficulty even more. It also sounds like it incentivizes you to become better at the game, otherwise risk getting ganked by your own damn clone. Obviously, a lot of this would not be possible without promoting the idea of build diversity, which seems to be at the core of Wuchang Fallen Feather's design philosophy. Equip a diverse array of outfits, weapons, accessories, and spell loadouts to tailor your approach. We've seen some of the weapons in action. There's long swords and short swords, double daggers, axes, and even spears. Also plenty of cool looking outfits as it is, including the pre-order and deluxe edition ones we'll talk about in just a little bit. However, the game also features a skill tree system called Impetus Repository that will use both to enhance attributes and to unlock new powerful abilities. This system is interconnected, so it lets you evolve into a warrior shaped by your own strategy, choice, and mastery. So it sounds like you're not just going to get passive stats over here, but also unique abilities, and given the fact that weapon swapping is also a possibility, you're going to probably spend extra points into multiple types of weapon categories too. Besides, of course, all the spells we can also unlock from defeating bosses and absorbing them. Now, in terms of technical specs, the game comes out on July 24th on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and also on the PC, especially via Steam. In this case, it was initially developed on Unreal Engine 4, I believe, and the developers were mentioning that eventually they upgraded to Unreal Engine 5. But there are some bonuses over here for both pre-ordering or getting the deluxe edition of the game. Like I said, the game is $50 for the base variant or $60 for the deluxe edition. And some of the items we get over here look pretty interesting. So the pre-orders get the knight and also the white pack. Over here we can see these two armors, which are pretty much opposites of one another. Also a Vermilion War Club, which is basically going to be an axe. From the looks of it, I believe we've seen it in some of the trailer shots. It's also capable of shooting some kind of fire onto the targets as one of its abilities. Plus some extra skill points, which we now found out in the game, come in the form of these red mercuries. So instead of getting something like souls or runes, it's red mercury, the name of the resource that we're going to be putting into upgrading our character. Of course, if you're going with the deluxe edition, you get a lot more for the 10 extra dollars. So there are 4 suits over here: the Soul Ritual, the Tiger of Fortune, Overlord, and the Draconic, all of which actually look really nice and high quality. On top of some of the other weapons we can see over here, like for example the spear, there is a set of dual blades and also 2 swords that we can get. So it looks like we can start right away, or I guess early in the game, with a bunch of really cool weapons. But yeah, overall, the title looks interesting. Do, however, let me know down below in the comments if this is something you're interested in. In the meantime, as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like on the video, and I will see you guys next time.